So, without further ado, I am pleased to introduce Dr. Dina Samuels, a respected expert in the workplace well-being, burnout prevention, and mindful leadership development. She spent 20 years as an award-winning professor at the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs, and now consults full-time, helping individuals and organizations strengthen resilience and wellness practices. Dr. Dina Samuels is the creator of the Overcoming Burnout Inner Self-Care Solutions program and the author of Fast Relief from Anxiety, as well as several other books on mindfulness and inclusive leadership. She has partnered with more than 150 organizations, including NASA, Facebook and WhatsApp, Humana, and Yale University, to support healthy, effective leadership. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Dina Samuels.
Thank you so much, Gab. I really appreciate it. I appreciate everybody who's here today and really excited about this. I'm hoping to, by the time you leave today, you'll have a few tools that maybe you didn't have before, and that's the goal. So again, welcome. But this is called Leading with Calm: How to Reduce Burnout and Strengthen Human Connection in a Changing Workplace. And so I am Dr. Dina Samuels. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And let's get started. So first of all, I would love for you to just bring your attention, your focus to here, to now, to this moment. So I'm going to invite us to take a deep breath together in a moment, just to, as we think about all the other things that are going on, to realize that we can just allow everything to go. So as we breathe in, just focus on what all the things that have gone on this morning, today already. And as you exhale, go ahead and just release. And as you exhale to bring your shoulders back and down and just settle into the seat that you're in. Remember that we're here really to explore and engage. So feel free to ask questions. Gab will be monitoring along the way, so she'll be able to relay anything that you share in the Q&A box. Also, I'm going to invite you to have something to write on and write with. You might want to take notes on a few things as we go. And there also will be prompts specifically that will help you engage in what it is we're doing. So without further ado, let's move on. I love this Audre Lorde quote. She said, self-care is not a luxury, it's an act of survival, which you may have heard before. And so I share it with you now just to say that we spend a lot of time not focusing on our self-care. Especially as busy as our lives are, we tend to forget, like where our own health and well-being is oftentimes the last thing we pay attention to unless we're in trouble. And the goal of this and the tools that I bring really are to keep that from happening or to preempt that, to avoid that. And also, if you have those moments where you're in that, what do you do? So all of these tools are for those purposes. This is a picture of me not too long ago, really soaking up the mountain I was hiking, and it was a beautiful day, and noticing how often or not we're taking the time to really be in nature in one way or another. If you even can get some fresh air on a daily basis, whether it just be, opening your window if you don't have an opportunity or the option of getting out and hiking or moving around in the world, in nature, just getting some fresh air, I think is already a survival skill, right? We all breathe, and it's important that we breathe fresh air as often as we can. So this is also to say that I haven't always known this. This was not something that I was taught. And I think the mainstream culture also doesn't teach that. It teaches us go, 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 go. You need to act and do and create and, succeed. And that's how you'll be happy in this life. But the reality is sometimes the opposite. Rather than being, it's more about rather than doing, it's more about the being, right? So my own journey to bring me here had to do with my connection with my healing process, connecting to this notion of mindfulness and the fact that my mindfulness practice helped me so much in my healing journey from really traumatic childhood trauma. And I use those practices. And as I've gone through, I've learned so much more, so many more practices. And so I have had clients who have said, well, we know that you do mindfulness. Like, can you help us? Because we're really suffering. We're really, dealing with burnout quite a lot now, and we need some help. And do you have some tools to help us? Do you have some resources? And I was like, oh, I have a million resources, but I didn't have my own resource. And I was thinking, why don't I have my own resource when I have books on all these other topics around? I mean, I have books on mindfulness, but not specifically tools. And so that was ended up being my latest book is on, fast relief from anxiety and how to really calm the nervous system. So this is really important that we have those tools and as many of them as we can get, because some will work sometimes and some will work other times. And having a whole backpack or knapsack, if you will, of tools can be very helpful. So I'm going to invite you just to write down what word or words best describe how you're feeling at work lately. Scattered. Hmm. Slow and still. Mm. Uncertain. There's a lot of uncertainty right now, right? Second guessing. Yeah. Coming with potentially with some doubt or even some fear. The uncertainty is really big right now. I think that's really big. Here's the reality of what most people are facing today, right? So with all the change that's happening, especially in the US right now, we've got AI, people are nervous about it or using it a lot or whatever. There's just major, major shifts and changes, right? Which of course increases our stress. From an organizational standpoint, it increases turnover and sick days. And it also increases bad decisions. And I say that because oftentimes people think, oh, if I just go quickly and I'll make all these decisions, then, I'll be getting a lot done. But it turns out that when we slow down to make decisions, we actually make better decisions. That's what the research shows, right? In addition to all of that, right? And you think about turnover and sick days, that not only is affecting individuals in an organization, but also an organization's overall bottom line. So organizations are losing millions, if not billions of dollars just on that piece alone. When we're not taking care of ourselves, when the organization is not taking care of the people within it, right? We lower connection, we lower engagement. When we are feeling stressed and even more so burnt out, we lower, our trust goes down, our creativity. We can't be productive, we can't be creative because we're not feeling safe. And safety is really, really important, especially today with all that's going on. So if you're feeling any of these ways, you're not alone, right? It's roughly 80%. Some polls are quoting just under 80 and some are quoting just over 80. Roughly 80% of the US workforce today is experiencing these symptoms of burnout. And also it's on the rise globally. So we're talking about epidemic proportions, the fact that 80% are affected. And so I want to help you understand a little bit, if you're not familiar or you haven't really thought about it this way, that our brain thinks when we are stressed, our brain thinks we're in danger. And So our nervous system gets activated, our um, our sympathetic nervous system gets activated, and we feel it in our bodies. And when that happens in the short term, like maybe you have a test you're about to come or a project that you're about to complete, and you might feel stressed, but you know there's an end in sight. Burnout happens when we're dysregulated for a long time, consistently, and there really is no end in sight. We do feel unsafe. That long-term effect is burnout. So there is a difference between stress and burnout. It's just another way to think about all of this and what's happening, the effect it has on our bodies. So, how does that show up in ourselves, right? We may feel fatigue, we may be irritable, we may feel some disconnection, not only from each other, but also even from ourselves, our own bodies. They're doing things, we're feeling pain or some kind of suffering that we didn't experience before. It also could be, a disconnection. Sometimes people feel a little dissociated, so it could be, you're disconnected almost from reality to some degree. And that's a very unpleasant feeling, but it's not super uncommon when it comes to anxiety and burnout. So important to keep in mind if you start feeling like, where am I and what is happening right now? That's not that uncommon when you're in that burnout mode, and high anxiety can produce that as well. What does that look like for your team or your coworkers? Maybe you're feeling like your life is balanced and you're taking care of yourself. You've got, good self-care practices, but you notice that other people, the specific people are missing deadlines or they're not engaged or they're feeling tense all the time, nervous, anxious, tense. It's likely that they may be also experiencing burnout. So it's important to see on a larger scale. Yeah. And the question, of course, the question of the day is how do we interrupt this pattern, right? And the answer, I would say, given all of my experience going through it myself and also recovering from it, I noticed that calm is what I'm sort of looking for and didn't realize until I learned about it that we can create it ourselves. It doesn't have to be just what's going on in the external world that because we are often affected. We're like, oh, I got this phone call and this on the news and that, and there's so much happening that can create that dis-ease. People also say that as disease, like that can be where disease comes from, disease or disease, that we are completely bombarded on a constant basis, especially right now, with all of that. And so we have control, we have some control over what's going on. And part of that has to do with creating the calmness within us. And we'll talk about a few practices of how to do that. What does that look like from, when we think about this in the larger framework? We want to think about your mindset, right? The old mindset was really push, 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 push. How much can I get done in a day? That was me for sure. I was all about the checklist, right? I needed to get through as many pieces of the, check marks as I could by the end of the day. And even if I completed it, I would start on tomorrow's list. Like that's how I was living. And that really creates exhaustion. On the smallest scale, it's exhaustion. On the larger scale, it's an unbalanced and can be very unhealthy way to go about your life. Not saying there's anything wrong with, people love to check the boxes on the list and no problem with that. But if that's the focus of your day every day and there's no balance, there's no self-care that comes with that, you might be leading towards burnout, right? So the newer mindset now, which you've heard more and more about, it's people are talking about it a little more, which I think is a fantastic thing, right? That we can pause, we can do it differently. We can pause, regulate our nervous system, and then reconnect to whatever it is we're doing. But taking that moment of pause is critically important. So, when I think about what it means to be a calm leader, right? This is presumably what brought you here today. Not only is it good for your own health and wellness, but the calm leader, when you think about the impact that a calm leader versus a stressed leader has on everyone they come in contact with, right? The difference is a calm leader creates teams that feel safer, they feel more connected. If you feel safer, you're going to that's where creativity can come from, innovation, right? You're going to be more productive. If you don't feel safe, you're not going to feel able to, will not have the capacity for creativity, right? That again, that's what the research shows. Also, a calm leader makes better, more inclusive decisions, which is really important too when we think about wanting to, do our best in the world, right? So, again, thinking about this mindset shift, you're going from severe like control, right? I've got to control my day, I've got to control everything, to moving towards a connection with the world, connection with yourself, connecting with the world, connecting with the people around you, right? Going from urgency, how quickly can I get this done, to, okay, I'm pausing, I'm reflecting. Now I can be clear. I can have a clearer picture of what I'm doing, right? My focus increases. I go from reacting to what's going on in the world to reflecting and responding, right? And so then we ask the question, what does it take to make this shift? And my answer to this is mindfulness. There are probably different people have different um, solutions, but this is where I have found so much peace. When I think about mindfulness, I think about the fact that I didn't, obviously, the idea didn't come from me, right? It came from the East philosophies and practices, and was brought over more to what I call the westernized, the colonized world, our mainstream culture, only in the last, I'd say, since maybe 1960s, something like that, is when it really started to gain a little bit of momentum. But it's really only been in the last 10 or 20 years that mindfulness is more of a common practice. It's a word that people are used to hearing now. So your practice may be something that is more like where it came from. There's also religions. There's different religions and different cultures, uh, aside from the mainstream culture, that have been doing this for millennia. We are borrowing it because it's such a beautiful, important practice, but always important to honor where it came from. So, it could, for you, it could show up as some a religious practice like prayer or something like that. It could be a spiritual practice like your meditation or connecting to the universe or whatever, your own source, your highest self, whatever. It could be a spiritual practice, or it could be just where you give your attention. And that could be something like, where do you get in the zone? It's like, it could be for you, it could be going for a run, or it could be drawing, or it could be going for a hike, or it could be, anything, gardening or cooking, or wherever it is that you really get in the zone, that you sort of lose what's going on before and after. You're not thinking about your to-do list. It's that awareness of the present moment. It's really focusing your attention on this moment now. It's also noticing what's going on in the world and in your life and with you in particular, without judgment. So rather than the negative thoughts that we get all day long, because that's what our brains do, most of the thoughts that we have, the research shows, are negative. Out of the some 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day that we have, 75% of them are negative. And 90% of those are the same thoughts we had yesterday. So when you think about that, you realize, wow, we really have to do something. We have to actually have a practice that helps us to either challenge those thoughts or to think other thoughts, right? And so that's when we think about positivity, and we don't want to talk about toxic positivity, which is, oh, everything is fine when it's really not. I'm not suggesting that, but thinking about where I can put my focus on more positive things. A lot of people say gratitude, that's a beautiful practice. What is anything I can be grateful for in this moment, right? Mindfulness to me also means aligning. It means alignment. It means aligning, giving myself a moment to align with my highest self, whatever that means to you. You may use different language, but it's connecting yourself to your highest self, to I would say to the universe, because it's a little bit more of a spiritual practice for me. But if that doesn't work for you, just focusing on your breath, that's your best self. You're going to have your breath until your very last one. So may as well use it as an anchor to connect with throughout your day. So I'm going to ask this question. How do you practice mindfulness? What gets you into the zone? And feel free to share in the chat and to write it down or the Q&A box.
I'm going to share my own way of practicing mindfulness, and I think it's always making sure that I have my morning routine down because I think in the morning that's the only time I can control
Mhm.
how my day starts. And so even if the rest of my day doesn't go that well, at least I can look back and say that I had a great morning.
Great. That's awesome. That's awesome. Marie says yoga. Yeah, beautiful practice. Hmm. Well, others, calm breathing. Nice, Tom. Thanks. That's awesome. So, if you don't think of yourself as somebody who does mindfulness, you may already be doing it without really thinking about it. But taking even a breath is important. Going on walks and singing. Thanks, Brittany. That's lovely. So here's a few of the tools that I'm going to share um, today. Uh, some of you who are on here now may know about my 10-second vacation, but we're gonna talk about that. And we're gonna actually practice it. And these are two others. I'm gonna do havening and mindful minute in meetings, which hopefully any of these might be helpful to you. So how we begin is the idea of calibration, which I love because it tells you how you're doing. It's sort of a check-in to yourself. It's a check-in with your nervous system, your emotional state, and how it's showing up in how you are showing up in your body right now. This burnout scale is on a scale from 1 to 10. So I'm going to invite you just to pick a number, check in with yourself and say on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is the calmest you've ever been and 10 is the most stressed, highly anxious, burnt out that you've ever been, that would be a 10. And just say what, thinking to yourself, what number comes to mind in this moment. Might have been different when you woke up or maybe different later, but what is it right now? It's a beautiful, calibration is a really important practice, and you'll see how it works. Okay, so I see some 3 and a 5 and another 5, 3 to 4. Okay. Awesome. Okay, great. Perfect. So you can put that aside for a second, for a moment, as we practice what I call the 10-second vacation. This is a practice that you can do it's gonna take a little longer than 10 seconds because I'm gonna explain it as we go. But what you're basically gonna do is inhale for a count of 4 and exhale for a count of 6. It's as simple as that. But if you can find yourself like really checking with your body right now, if you're sitting, checking in with where your body, all the points of contact with the chair underneath you, if your feet are on the floor, if that's possible for your body and that works right now, feel your connection with your feet. So you're talking about grounding, right? really grounding and feeling your body in where it is right now. And then I'm going to invite us to inhale for 4, and we'll do it. You can watch the screen if you like, or you can close your eyes if you like. 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale. And then as you exhale, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'm going to invite you just to check in with your body after that deep inhale and the exhale. It turns out if your exhale is longer than your inhale, it actually signals to your brain that it's okay to calm down. It's okay, like you're safe in this moment. You're safe as you exhale and letting go of whatever, as we say in yoga, no longer serves you, right? So I'd like you to check in with yourself again and recalibrate. Calibrate one more time. And just notice if you remember the number you had before and the number now. And what I'd love for you to do as you are checking in with your bodies right in this moment, maybe put in the chat where it went from and to. And even if it went down 1 point, right? If you went from a 5 to a 4 or a 6 to a, 6 to a 5 or something, just notice in 10 seconds that you're already calmer than you were. For most people, there's a big jump. But if it only jumps a little bit in that 10 seconds, first of all, you can do it again and it'll probably jump even lower the second time. But just pay attention and know that you can, that just breathing actually does something to your nervous system. So pay attention to that. Um, yeah. The second one I want to do, and we're not going to calibrate for this because it will, now that we've already done a practice, we don't know, we're trying to see, on your own, you'll be able to tell, you'll calibrate before and after when you do a practice and just notice, does that work better for me? And everybody's different. So the 10-second vacation may work wonders. And if it didn't work as well as you would have liked today, try it later today and see if it works better. Calibrate again. You'll always know by the calibration. Did that work for me? Or how well did that work for me? Here's another one, havening. For this one, you cross your arms across your chest, almost like you're giving yourself a big hug. And you ground yourself, just noticing your feet on the ground or your chair in the seat or your back against the seat if you're seated, whatever the points of contact, right? That's a beautiful grounding practice. You cross your arms, take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, slide your hands from your shoulders all the way down to your elbows, and then repeat. Shoulders come up, inhale, and as you exhale, slide your arms down. It's sort of like it's self-soothing. And I would invite you to do it 3 times. Inhale, and as you exhale, slide the arms down to the elbows. You can do it as many as 10 times if you like. But that self-soothing process it's such a beautiful, grounding, comforting kind of practice. And so I invite you to take advantage of that one as well. The third one I want to share with you today is just bringing mindful minutes to your meetings, to your workspace, right? So pausing, if you have a Zoom call, maybe pause for a moment before you get on Zoom, if you're working remotely or even if you're not, right? Before you do anything really is to pause, before you pick up a phone call, before you send a text or an email, just pause and take a breath. Just notice if it makes a difference in your engagement, in your focus, your clarity, your vision, right? You could pause together if you're starting meetings, if you're leading a meeting. What would it be like to create this as sort of a norm or practice in your workspace? Pausing together at the beginning of meetings, and maybe even saying, okay, we're going to take a 10-second vacation, or you can just say, let's take a breath together just to come in to this space so that we can really be focused. The difference that it makes when I started doing this in the classroom was it was night and day because people come to every space they're in from wherever they came from, right? They're still bringing with them all of the potential, whatever happened during the day, right? And sometimes there's drama that happens in our days. And so bringing it into the new space kind of clutters up the energy, right? It clutters up the space. So this is an opportunity to just pause for a moment. It doesn't mean that whatever it was that you brought in isn't still going on out there, but you have changed, right? You have shifted your focus a little bit and things become a little bit more clear. So doing that during meetings, but also pausing before you make any final decision, especially if you have a meeting and you're trying to decide, something really important, like who's going to be on this team or even hiring decisions, right? Pausing, this is huge. We have a lot of biases, and one of our biases is when everybody else that thinks, oh yeah, we're headed in the right decision. This is the right decision. Still pause for a moment and ask the question and really give people the space to respond. What are we missing? Is there something that we've overlooked just to try to get to that final decision? Just pausing for a moment. Sometimes things bubble up to the surface and people bring things up that they were afraid to bring up sooner. So it's a beautiful leadership tool. What are we missing? You make more inclusive, more and better decisions when you pause like that. What does this look like in terms of creating culture, right? So as I've been sharing, modeling mindfulness in meetings, right? Which it could include pausing, it could include breathing together, it could be, the language of grounding. Some people will say, oh, that's not, that doesn't seem like it belongs in the workspace. But the truth is, we all breathe, right? So if you think about some of my clients, like NASA, for example, I've worked with a lot of scientists who are like, don't want to, don't, they call it woo woo or whatever. You've heard that before. And really, we all breathe. And scientifically, I'm a social scientist myself, right? Scientifically, I know that if I can show that there's a difference from my calibration before and after, it's working. Something I'm doing is changing the way I show up in the world that creates a culture of not only belonging for myself, but also connection with others. And then bringing well-being, whatever that looks like to you in your culture, your organizational culture, bringing that front and center, creating a plan around it, then all of the people in your organization and perhaps your clients or the people that you work with, the organizations that you work with, know that this is a focus for you, that well-being, that you care about the human beings that you work with in your organization. Super important. Yeah. And so I'm going to close with asking, what is one practice from today that you might incorporate in your work or your space? Maybe it's in your life today or tomorrow. And if you could write it down, write it in the chat, that would be wonderful in the Q&A.
Is there a practice that you are going to focus on today, Dr. Dina?
Oh, I think most of these. I'm trying to think about my meetings later, if I have meetings that I can do this with today. But I haven quite, probably on a daily basis at some point or another. I'm like, need that extra little self-care. I take my breaths all day long and my mindfulness practices. But I love that folks are talking about havening. Um, Beautiful. Yeah, that's lovely. Mindful minutes and meetings. Yeah. To interrupt the constant rushing from A to B. Absolutely. Yeah. Paul, thanks. Yeah, that's havening. Yeah, the 10-second vacation. Beautiful, beautiful. So just keep in mind, I think about calm as a leadership skill. I think about it as a superpower, to be honest. Calm leadership is so not the norm that I really think about it as, this is what we need to be doing, right? And when we lead with calm, everyone performs better because you feel a little safer in the space. And so the idea that these small daily practices create lasting cultural change, they really do make a difference. So I hope that was helpful to you, just so you know what's coming up for me. I've been sharing my overcoming burnout what is what I call inner self-care solutions. These are a few of those solutions here. There's a ton more in my four-part series. And would love to talk more with you about it if you think it might be a good fit for you. I take groups of 5 or more if you have individuals or groups that you're involved in who would like to learn some of these tools in a bigger, more a deeper way. Feel free to reach out. My beautiful marketing team came up with this beautiful slide that gives you can just point your camera, and on the left side is to get further information. It goes right to the website, the web page on my website of overcoming burnout. And the one on the right is if you're ready to actually schedule a time with me, to please do so. I am offering a 20% discount on this overcoming burnout program today. And if you can add the word, whenever you actually schedule a time, if you have been here and you've watched this webinar, you've been here with me, or you've watched it after the fact, type in the word webinar under where it asks in the scheduler the purpose of the meeting. And I'm more than happy to offer that 20% discount. I'll give you just a second with that. And then also to know that this is my book. Here's the QR code for this. If it would be helpful for you or someone you know, this Fast Relief from Anxiety book is 25 more tools. Some of these are incorporated, some of them are not. I think I have havening in there. And I think I have my 10-second vacation, but there's 23, I would say 23 other tools that might be helpful for you. And I will finally say I'm happy to answer any questions you have. In the meantime, I also have some free tools available on my YouTube channel. So please feel free to just find me on YouTube, Dina Samuels. And you can like and subscribe, and you'll get whatever tools I continue to add to my YouTube channel. Those are free. Feel free to share the webinar far and wide if you think there are people who might find it useful in terms of lowering their blood pressure, their pulse rate. Yes, happy to have you share it with whomever. And I just really want to thank you all for being here and look forward to continued connection. Thanks so much, everyone.